Amanda, a 29-year-old librarian, was buying her first home when she received a phone call that would test her understanding of home inspection services and teach her valuable lessons about phantom inspection debt scams. The caller claimed she owed thousands of dollars for specialized inspections she had never ordered at a property she wasn't even purchasing. Amanda was indeed in the process of buying her first home and had already arranged for a standard home inspection through a licensed inspector recommended by her real estate agent. The inspection had been completed without any complications, and she had received a comprehensive report about the property's condition. Amanda had only authorized one home inspection and had paid the inspector directly at the time of service. She had not requested any additional specialized inspections that would result in outstanding bills or collection efforts from inspection companies she didn't recognize. The caller, who identified himself as Home Inspection Billing Specialist Robert Chin from Advanced Property Assessment Services, claimed that Amanda owed $2,800 for specialized structural and environmental inspections that had been performed on her potential home purchase. Ms. Williams, you have an outstanding home inspection bill of $2,800 for specialized structural analysis and environmental testing performed at 1247 Oak Street during your pre-purchase inspection process, Chin said with apparent home inspection knowledge and property assessment expertise. Chin claimed that Amanda's mortgage lender had required the additional inspections for loan approval and that the inspection company had referred her account to their collection agency after she failed to pay for the specialized services. Ms. Williams, mortgage lenders often require specialized inspections beyond basic home inspections, and when these inspections aren't paid for, it can affect your loan approval and closing process. Chin continued with apparent mortgage requirement knowledge and inspection billing expertise. Chin explained that immediate payment was necessary to prevent the inspection debt from affecting her home purchase, and that additional collection fees would be added if the account was not resolved within 48 hours. Amanda was confused because she had only used one home inspector and had never heard of Advanced Property Assessment Services or authorized any specialized inspections at 1247 Oak Street, which wasn't even the address of the home she was purchasing. I've never heard of your company, and 1247 Oak Street isn't the property I'm buying, Amanda explained to Chun. Can you provide documentation showing when these inspections were supposedly performed and who authorized them? Chin became evasive when Amanda requested inspection documentation, claiming that detailed inspection reports contained proprietary information that required homeowner authorization and payment verification before release. Ms. Williams, specialized inspection reports contain technical information that requires client authorization and payment verification before they can be discussed. Chin explained with apparent inspection privacy knowledge and authorization procedures. Chin also claimed that the inspection debt was time-sensitive and that delays could affect Amanda's mortgage approval and home closing schedule if the specialized inspection requirements weren't satisfied immediately. Amanda felt suspicious about Chin's claims and decided to verify the inspection billing through her real estate agent, mortgage lender, and the home inspector she had actually used. Amanda contacted Advanced Property Assessment Services directly and learned that they had no records of performing any inspections for her or at any properties she was considering purchasing. Amanda also contacted her mortgage lender to verify whether any additional inspections were required for her loan approval and learned that only the standard home inspection she had already completed was necessary. Amanda verified with her real estate agent and home inspector that all required inspections had been completed and paid for, and that no additional specialized inspections were needed for her home purchase. Amanda realized that Advanced Property Assessment Services was fraudulently claiming inspection debt for services she had never received and using her home buying activity to create believable billing scenarios. Amanda contacted Advanced Property Assessment Services to inform Chun that the fraudulent claims had been verified, but Chun continued to insist that the inspection debt was legitimate and threatened mortgage approval complications. Amanda reported the home inspection billing fraud to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, her state's Attorney General office, and her state's Home Inspection Licensing Board. The authorities explained that legitimate home inspection billing involves proper service documentation, inspection reports, and coordination with real estate professionals before pursuing collection activities against homebuyers. Amanda learned that homebuyers should verify all inspection services through their real estate agents and mortgage lenders and should be suspicious of inspection debt claims that cannot be documented through legitimate inspection companies. The experience taught Amanda to maintain detailed records of her home buying process and to verify all inspection claims through direct contact with her real estate professionals and licensed inspectors. Amanda now educates other first-time homebuyers about inspection fraud and emphasizes the importance of verifying inspection debt claims through legitimate inspection services and real estate channels. Marcus, a 33-year-old electrician, was selling his home when he received threatening calls about inspection collection that would test his knowledge of property disclosure requirements and teach him valuable lessons about fake disclosure inspection scams. The caller claimed he owed money for mandatory disclosure inspections that had never been performed. Marcus was selling his home through a licensed real estate agent and had completed all required property disclosures and inspections according to his state's real estate regulations. His home was listed properly, and he had not received any notices about additional inspection requirements. Marcus had worked with his real estate agent to ensure that all necessary property condition reports and disclosures were completed accurately and submitted according to local real estate laws and regulations. The caller, who identified herself as Property Disclosure Specialist Jennifer Martinez from Mandatory Inspection Services, claimed that Marcus owed $1,900 for required environmental and safety inspections that were mandatory for all home sales in his area. "Mr. Thompson, you have an outstanding property inspection bill of $1,900 for mandatory environmental testing and safety compliance inspections required for your home sale at 856 Pine Avenue," Martinez said with apparent property disclosure knowledge and compliance requirement expertise. Martinez claimed that recent changes in local real estate regulations required additional inspections for all home sales, and that Marcus's property could not be legally sold without completing the mandatory inspection process. "Mr. Thompson, new local regulations require comprehensive environmental and safety inspections for all residential property sales, and failure to complete these inspections can result in legal penalties and sale cancellation," Martinez continued with apparent regulatory knowledge and legal requirement expertise. Martinez explained that immediate payment was necessary to schedule the required inspections and that Marcus's home sale could be delayed or canceled if the inspection requirements weren't satisfied within 1 week. Marcus was confused because his real estate agent had not mentioned any new inspection requirements, and he had already completed all disclosures and inspections that were required for his home sale. "My real estate agent hasn't mentioned any new inspection requirements," Marcus explained to Martinez. "Can you provide documentation showing these new regulations and which agency requires these inspections?" Martinez became aggressive when Marcus questioned the inspection requirements, claiming that many real estate agents weren't aware of the new regulations and that property owners were personally responsible for compliance regardless of agent knowledge. "Mr. Thompson, these are new regulations that many real estate agents haven't learned about yet, but property owners are legally responsible for compliance whether their agents know about the requirements or not," Martinez insisted with apparent regulatory complexity and owner responsibility knowledge. Martinez also threatened to report Marcus to local housing authorities for non-compliance if he didn't schedule the mandatory inspections immediately through their authorized inspection service. Marcus felt frustrated by Martinez's threats and decided to verify the inspection requirements through his real estate agent, local housing authorities, and state real estate commission. Marcus contacted his real estate agent, who confirmed that no new inspection requirements had been implemented and that all necessary disclosures and inspections for Marcus's home sale had been completed properly. Marcus also contacted local housing authorities and his state's real estate commission to verify whether any new mandatory inspection requirements existed and learned that no such regulations had been enacted. Marcus verified that Mandatory Inspection Services was not listed as an authorized inspection company with any local housing agencies or real estate regulatory bodies. Marcus realized that Mandatory Inspection Services was fraudulently claiming inspection requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit his home sale process to collect unnecessary inspection fees. Marcus contacted Mandatory Inspection Services to inform Martinez that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent, but Martinez continued to insist that the inspections were mandatory and threatened regulatory penalties. Marcus reported the home inspection requirement fraud to his state's real estate commission, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and his local housing authority. The authorities explained that legitimate inspection requirements are established through official regulatory channels and that property owners should verify all inspection claims through licensed real estate professionals and regulatory agencies. Marcus learned that home sellers should work with licensed real estate agents to understand actual inspection requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming new mandatory inspection regulations. The experience taught Marcus to verify all real estate regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other homeowners about legitimate inspection requirements versus fraudulent inspection schemes. Marcus now educates other electricians and homeowners about inspection fraud and emphasizes verifying all inspection requirements through licensed real estate professionals and official regulatory agencies. Jennifer, a 31-year-old nurse, was refinancing her home when she received calls about inspection billing that would test her understanding of refinancing requirements and teach her valuable lessons about fake refinance inspection scams. The caller claimed she owed money for appraisal and inspection services required for her mortgage refinancing. Jennifer was refinancing her mortgage through a reputable lender and had already completed all required appraisal and inspection services as part of the refinancing process. Her loan application was progressing normally without any additional inspection requirements. Jennifer had paid for all required refinancing services directly through her mortgage lender and had not authorized any additional inspection services that would result in separate billing or collection efforts. The caller, who identified himself as Refinance Inspection Coordinator David Wilson from Mortgage Compliance Inspections, claimed that Jennifer owed $2,400 for specialized compliance inspections and updated appraisal services required for her refinancing approval. Ms. Rodriguez, you have an outstanding refinance inspection bill of $2,400 for mortgage compliance testing and updated property valuation services required for your refinancing at 432 Maple Drive, Wilson said with apparent refinancing knowledge and compliance requirement expertise. Wilson claimed that recent changes in mortgage regulations required additional inspections for all refinancing applications and that Jennifer's loan approval was pending completion of the specialized compliance testing. Ms. Rodriguez, new federal mortgage regulations require comprehensive compliance inspections for all refinancing applications, and your loan cannot be approved until these inspections are completed and paid for. Wilson continued with apparent federal regulation knowledge and loan approval expertise. Wilson explained that immediate payment was necessary to complete the required inspections and that Jennifer's refinancing would be denied if the compliance requirements weren't satisfied within 72 hours. Jennifer was confused because her mortgage lender had not mentioned any additional inspection requirements, and her refinancing application was progressing normally through the standard approval process. My mortgage lender hasn't mentioned any additional inspection requirements for my refinancing, Jennifer explained to Wilson. Can you provide documentation showing these new federal regulations and how they apply to my loan? Wilson became insistent when Jennifer questioned the inspection requirements, claiming that mortgage lenders often don't explain all regulatory requirements to borrowers and that compliance testing was handled separately from standard loan processing. Ms. Rodriguez, mortgage lenders focus on loan processing and often don't explain the separate compliance requirements that borrowers are responsible for completing independently, Wilson explained with apparent lending process knowledge and compliance separation. Wilson also threatened that Jennifer's refinancing would be automatically denied if she didn't complete the compliance inspections immediately, potentially affecting her credit score and future loan eligibility. Jennifer felt concerned about potential loan denial, but decided to verify the inspection requirements through her mortgage lender and federal banking regulators before making any payments. Jennifer contacted her mortgage lender directly to verify whether any additional inspections were required for her refinancing and learned that all necessary appraisal and inspection services had already been completed and paid for. Jennifer also contacted federal banking regulators to verify whether new compliance inspection requirements had been implemented for mortgage refinancing and learned that no such regulations existed. Jennifer verified that mortgage compliance inspections was not listed as an authorized service provider with any federal banking agencies or mortgage regulatory bodies. Jennifer realized that mortgage compliance inspections was fraudulently claiming inspection requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit her refinancing process to collect unnecessary inspection fees. Jennifer contacted mortgage compliance inspections to inform Wilson that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent. But Wilson continued to insist that the inspections were mandatory and threatened loan denial. Jennifer reported the refinance inspection fraud to her mortgage lender's fraud department, federal banking regulators, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate refinancing requirements are communicated through official mortgage lenders and that borrowers should verify all inspection claims through their loan officers and regulatory agencies. Jennifer learned that homeowners should work with their mortgage lenders to understand actual refinancing requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming new federal inspection regulations. The experience taught Jennifer to verify all mortgage regulatory claims through official lending channels and to help educate other healthcare workers about legitimate refinancing requirements versus fraudulent inspection schemes. Jennifer now educates other nurses about mortgage fraud and emphasizes verifying all refinancing inspection requirements through licensed mortgage lenders and federal banking regulators. Christopher, a 35-year-old mechanic, was preparing to rent out his basement when he received phone calls about rental inspection bills that would test his understanding of landlord requirements and teach him valuable lessons about fake rental inspection scams. The caller claimed he owed money for mandatory rental property inspections. Christopher was converting his basement into a rental unit and had already completed all required inspections and permits through his local housing authority. His rental property met all safety and habitability requirements according to local rental regulations. Christopher had worked with local building inspectors to ensure that his basement conversion complied with all rental property codes and had received proper permits and certificates for the rental unit. The caller, who identified herself as Rental Property Inspection Specialist Lisa Hayes from Landlord Compliance Services, claimed that Christopher owed $1,600 for mandatory annual rental inspections and tenant safety certifications required for all rental properties. Mr. Davis, you have an outstanding rental inspection bill of $1,600 for mandatory landlord compliance testing and tenant safety certification required for your rental property at 789 Cedar Street, Hayes said with apparent rental property knowledge and landlord requirement expertise. Hayes claimed that recent changes in local rental regulations required annual inspections for all rental properties and that Christopher's rental license would be revoked if the compliance inspections weren't completed immediately. Mr. Davis, new local rental regulations require comprehensive annual inspections for all rental properties, and failure to complete these inspections can result in rental license revocation and legal penalties. Hayes continued with apparent regulatory knowledge and compliance requirement expertise. Hayes explained that immediate payment was necessary to schedule the required inspections and that Christopher could face fines and legal action if the rental compliance requirements weren't satisfied within 1 week. Christopher was confused because his local housing authority had not mentioned any new annual inspection requirements, and his rental property was already certified and licensed according to current regulations. The housing authority hasn't mentioned any new annual inspection requirements, Christopher explained to Hayes. Can you provide documentation showing these new regulations and which agency requires these inspections? Hayes became aggressive when Christopher questioned the inspection requirements, claiming that many landlords weren't aware of the new regulations and that property owners were personally responsible for compliance regardless of housing authority communications. Mr. Davis, these are new regulations that many housing authorities haven't communicated clearly, but landlords are legally responsible for compliance whether they've been notified or not. Hayes insisted with apparent regulatory complexity and landlord responsibility knowledge. Hayes also threatened to contact local code enforcement agencies about Christopher's noncompliance if he didn't schedule the mandatory inspections immediately through their authorized inspection service. Christopher felt frustrated by Hayes's threats and decided to verify the inspection requirements through his local housing authority, building department, and state rental regulatory agencies. Christopher contacted his local housing authority and building department to verify whether any new annual inspection requirements had been implemented for rental properties and learned that no such regulations existed. Christopher also verified with state rental regulatory agencies that his rental property was properly licensed and that no additional inspection requirements had been enacted. Christopher confirmed that Landlord Compliance Services was not listed as an authorized inspection company with any local housing agencies or rental regulatory bodies. Christopher realized that Landlord Compliance Services was fraudulently claiming inspection requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit his rental property activity to collect unnecessary inspection fees. Christopher contacted Landlord Compliance Services to inform Hayes that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent, but Hayes continued to insist that the inspections were mandatory and threatened code enforcement action. Christopher reported the rental inspection requirement fraud to his local housing authority, state rental regulatory agencies, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate rental inspection requirements are established through official housing agencies and that landlords should verify all inspection claims through licensed housing officials and regulatory agencies. Christopher learned that landlords should work with local housing authorities to understand actual inspection requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming new mandatory rental inspection regulations. The experience taught Christopher to verify all rental regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other mechanics with rental properties about legitimate inspection requirements versus fraudulent inspection schemes. Christopher now educates other mechanics about rental property fraud and emphasizes verifying all rental inspection requirements through local housing authorities and official regulatory agencies. Patricia, a 37-year-old teacher, was dealing with insurance claims after storm damage when she received calls about inspection collection that would test her understanding of insurance inspection requirements and teach her valuable lessons about fake insurance inspection scams. The caller claimed she owed money for specialized damage assessments. Patricia's home had sustained minor roof damage during a recent storm, and she had filed an insurance claim with her homeowner's insurance company. An insurance adjuster had already inspected the damage and approved repairs according to her policy coverage. Patricia had worked with her insurance company's approved contractors and adjusters to assess the storm damage and had not authorized any additional inspection services that would result in separate billing or collection efforts. The caller, who identified himself as Insurance Inspection Billing Agent Stephen Clark from Storm Damage Assessment Services, claimed that Patricia owed $2,200 for specialized structural assessments and hidden damage inspections required by her insurance company. Ms. Johnson, you have an outstanding insurance inspection bill of $2,200 for comprehensive structural analysis and concealed damage assessment required by your insurance company for your storm damage claim, Clark said with apparent insurance inspection knowledge and damage assessment expertise. Clark claimed that Patricia's insurance company required additional specialized inspections beyond the standard adjuster assessment to verify the full extent of storm damage and ensure proper repair coverage. Ms. Johnson, insurance companies require comprehensive damage inspections to identify hidden structural problems that standard adjusters might miss, and these specialized inspections are necessary for full claim approval. Clark continued with apparent insurance requirement knowledge and inspection expertise. Clark explained that immediate payment was necessary to complete the required inspections and that Patricia's insurance claim could be denied or reduced if the specialized assessments weren't completed within 48 hours. Patricia was confused because her insurance company had not mentioned any additional inspection requirements, and her claim had already been approved and processed according to her policy terms. My insurance company hasn't mentioned any additional inspection requirements, and my claim has already been approved, Patricia explained to Clark. Can you provide documentation showing that my insurance company requires these additional inspections? Clark became insistent when Patricia questioned the inspection requirements, claiming that insurance companies often don't explain all assessment requirements to policyholders and that specialized inspections were handled separately from standard claims processing. Ms. Johnson, insurance companies focus on basic claims processing and often don't explain the separate assessment requirements that policyholders are responsible for completing independently, Clark explained with apparent insurance process knowledge and assessment separation. Clark also threatened that Patricia's insurance claim would be reopened and potentially denied if she didn't complete the specialized inspections immediately, which could affect her coverage for future claims. Patricia felt concerned about potential claim denial but decided to verify the inspection requirements through her insurance company and state insurance regulators before making any payments. Patricia contacted her insurance company directly to verify whether any additional inspections were required for her storm damage claim and learned that all necessary assessments had already been completed by their approved adjusters. Patricia also contacted state insurance regulators to verify whether insurance companies could require policyholders to pay for additional inspections separately from claims processing and learned that such requirements would violate insurance regulations. Patricia verified that Storm Damage Assessment Services was not listed as an approved contractor or inspection service with her insurance company or state insurance regulatory agencies. Patricia realized that Storm Damage Assessment Services was fraudulently claiming inspection requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit her insurance claim process to collect unnecessary inspection fees. Patricia contacted Storm Damage Assessment Services to inform Clark that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent, but Clark continued to insist that the inspections were mandatory and threatened claim denial. Patricia reported the insurance inspection fraud to her insurance company's fraud department, state insurance regulators, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate insurance inspections are conducted by company-approved adjusters and contractors, and that policyholders should verify all inspection claims through their insurance companies and regulatory agencies. Patricia learned that homeowners should work with their insurance companies to understand actual claim requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming additional inspection requirements outside of normal claims processing. The experience taught Patricia to verify all insurance regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other teachers about legitimate insurance requirements versus fraudulent inspection schemes. Patricia now educates other teachers about insurance fraud and emphasizes verifying all insurance inspection requirements through licensed insurance companies and state regulatory agencies. Daniel, a 32-year-old construction worker, was buying a fixer-upper property when he received threatening calls about specialty inspection bills that would test his understanding of property condition assessments and teach him valuable lessons about fake specialty inspection scams. The caller claimed he owed money for environmental and structural testing. Daniel was purchasing an older home that needed renovation work and had arranged for standard home inspection and additional assessments appropriate for the property's age and condition. He had worked with qualified inspectors to evaluate the renovation potential. Daniel had carefully budgeted for all necessary inspections and had paid approved inspectors directly for their services. He had not authorized any additional specialty testing that would result in unexpected bills or collection efforts. The caller, who identified herself as Specialty Testing Coordinator Amanda Foster from Environmental Safety Inspections, claimed that Daniel owed $3,400 for mandatory environmental testing and structural safety assessments required for older properties. Mr. Wilson, you have an outstanding specialty inspection bill of $3,400 for environmental hazard testing and structural integrity analysis required for your property purchase at 234 Oak Avenue, Foster said with apparent environmental testing knowledge and safety assessment expertise. Foster claimed that properties built before 1980 required mandatory environmental testing for lead, asbestos, and other hazardous materials before ownership transfer could be completed legally. Mr. Wilson, older properties require comprehensive environmental testing for hazardous materials, and property ownership cannot be legally transferred without completing mandatory safety assessments. Foster continued with apparent environmental regulation knowledge and legal requirement expertise. Foster explained that immediate payment was necessary to complete the required testing and that Daniel's property purchase could be canceled if the environmental safety requirements weren't satisfied before closing. Daniel was confused because his real estate agent and attorney had not mentioned any mandatory environmental testing requirements beyond the standard inspections he had already completed and paid for. My real estate agent and attorney haven't mentioned any mandatory environmental testing requirements, Daniel explained to Foster. Can you provide documentation showing which agency requires these tests and how they apply to my property purchase? Foster became aggressive when Daniel questioned the testing requirements, claiming that many real estate professionals weren't aware of environmental regulations and that property buyers were personally responsible for compliance regardless of professional guidance. Mr. Wilson, many real estate agents and attorneys don't understand environmental compliance requirements, but property buyers are legally responsible for completing mandatory testing whether their professionals know about it or not. Foster insisted with apparent regulatory complexity and buyer responsibility knowledge. Foster also threatened that Daniel's property closing would be blocked by environmental agencies if he didn't complete the mandatory testing immediately through their authorized testing service. Daniel felt frustrated by Foster's threats and decided to verify the testing requirements through his real estate attorney, environmental agencies, and state property regulatory authorities. Daniel contacted his real estate attorney and real estate agent to verify whether any additional environmental testing was required for his property purchase and learned that all necessary inspections had been completed according to legal requirements. Daniel also contacted environmental agencies and state property regulatory authorities to verify whether mandatory environmental testing was required for older property purchases and learned that no such requirements existed beyond standard disclosure procedures. Daniel verified that Environmental Safety Inspections was not listed as an authorized testing company with any environmental agencies or property regulatory bodies. Daniel realized that Environmental Safety Inspections was fraudulently claiming testing requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit his property purchase to collect unnecessary testing fees. Daniel contacted Environmental Safety Inspections to inform Foster that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent. But Foster continued to insist that the testing was mandatory and threatened closing cancellation. Daniel reported the environmental testing fraud to his real estate attorney, environmental regulatory agencies, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate environmental testing requirements are established through official regulatory channels and that property buyers should verify all testing claims through licensed real estate professionals and regulatory agencies. Daniel learned that property buyers should work with qualified real estate attorneys to understand actual testing requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming mandatory environmental testing beyond standard property inspections. The experience taught Daniel to verify all property regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other construction workers about legitimate inspection requirements versus fraudulent testing schemes. Daniel now educates other construction workers about property fraud and emphasizes verifying all environmental testing requirements through licensed real estate professionals and official regulatory agencies. Nancy, a 34-year-old bank manager, was preparing to move into a new neighborhood when she received calls about municipal inspection bills that would test her understanding of local housing requirements and teach her valuable lessons about fake municipal inspection scams. The caller claimed she owed money for required city inspections. Nancy had purchased a home in a new city and had completed all required paperwork and inspections according to local housing regulations. Her property transfer had been processed properly through official municipal channels, and she had received all necessary permits and certificates. Nancy had worked with local housing officials to ensure that her property met all municipal requirements and had paid all required fees directly to city offices during the transfer process. The caller, who identified himself as Municipal Inspection Billing Agent Robert Chin from City Compliance Services, claimed that Nancy owed $1,800 for mandatory city inspections and municipal compliance certifications required for all new residents. Ms. Mitchell, you have an outstanding municipal inspection bill of $1,800 for city compliance testing and new resident certification required for your property at 567 Elm Street, Chin said with apparent municipal regulation knowledge and city requirement expertise. Chin claimed that recent changes in city regulations required comprehensive inspections for all new property owners and that Nancy's residency status would be affected if the compliance requirements weren't satisfied immediately. Ms. Mitchell, new city regulations require comprehensive municipal inspections for all new residents, and failure to complete these inspections can affect your residency status and property ownership rights. Chen continued with apparent municipal knowledge and compliance requirement expertise. Chen explained that immediate payment was necessary to schedule the required inspections and that Nancy could face legal penalties and residency complications if the municipal requirements weren't satisfied within 1 week. Nancy was confused because city officials had not mentioned any additional inspection requirements during her property transfer process, and she had already completed all necessary municipal paperwork and payments. City officials haven't mentioned any additional inspection requirements, and I've already completed all municipal paperwork, Nancy explained to Chen. Can you provide documentation showing these new city regulations and which department requires these inspections? Chen became insistent when Nancy questioned the inspection requirements, claiming that many city departments don't communicate effectively and that new residents were personally responsible for compliance regardless of official guidance. Ms. Mitchell, city departments often don't coordinate communications effectively, but new residents are legally responsible for completing all municipal requirements whether they've been notified or not, Chen explained with apparent municipal complexity and resident responsibility knowledge. Chen also threatened to report Nancy to city compliance officers for non-compliance if she didn't schedule the mandatory inspections immediately through their authorized inspection service. Nancy felt frustrated by Chen's threats and decided to verify the inspection requirements through city housing departments, municipal offices, and local government agencies. Nancy contacted city housing departments and municipal offices to verify whether any new inspection requirements had been implemented for new residents and learned that no such regulations existed. Nancy also verified with local government agencies that her property transfer had been completed properly and that no additional municipal requirements applied to her residency status. Nancy confirmed that City Compliance Services was not listed as an authorized service provider with any city departments or municipal agencies. Nancy realized that City Compliance Services was fraudulently claiming inspection requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit her move to collect unnecessary inspection fees. Nancy contacted City Compliance Services to inform Chen that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent, but Chen continued to insist that the inspections were mandatory and threatened municipal penalties. Nancy reported the municipal inspection fraud to city housing departments, local government agencies, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate municipal inspection requirements are established through official city channels and that residents should verify all inspection claims through licensed municipal officials and government agencies. Nancy learned that new residents should work with city housing departments to understand actual municipal requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming new city inspection regulations. The experience taught Nancy to verify all municipal regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other bank employees about legitimate city requirements versus fraudulent inspection schemes. Nancy now educates other bank employees about municipal fraud and emphasizes verifying all city inspection requirements through official municipal departments and local government agencies. Kevin, a 39-year-old postal worker, was upgrading his home's electrical system when he received phone calls about electrical inspection bills that would test his understanding of electrical code requirements and teach him valuable lessons about fake electrical inspection scams. The caller claimed he owed money for specialized electrical testing. Kevin was upgrading his home's electrical panel and wiring through a licensed electrical contractor and had arranged for all required electrical inspections through his local building department. The electrical work was being completed according to current electrical codes and safety standards. Kevin had worked with licensed electricians and building inspectors to ensure that his electrical upgrade met all safety requirements and had paid all required inspection fees directly to city building departments. The caller, who identified herself as Electrical Safety Inspection Specialist Jennifer Hayes from Code Compliance Testing, claimed that Kevin owed $2,600 for specialized electrical safety testing and advanced code compliance inspections. Mr. Adams, you have an outstanding electrical inspection bill of $2,600 for comprehensive electrical safety testing and advanced code compliance analysis required for your electrical upgrade at 890 Pine Street, Hayes said with apparent electrical code knowledge and safety testing expertise. Hayes claimed that recent changes in electrical codes required additional specialized testing beyond standard building department inspections to ensure complete electrical safety compliance. Mr. Adams, new electrical codes require comprehensive safety testing that goes beyond basic building department inspections, and electrical upgrades cannot be approved without completing advanced compliance testing. Hayes continued with apparent electrical regulation knowledge and testing requirement expertise. Hayes explained that immediate payment was necessary to complete the required testing and that Kevin's electrical upgrade could be condemned if the safety compliance requirements weren't satisfied within 72 hours. Kevin was confused because his electrical contractor and building inspector had not mentioned any additional testing requirements, and his electrical upgrade was progressing normally through standard inspection procedures. My electrical contractor and building inspector haven't mentioned any additional testing requirements, Kevin explained to Hayes. Can you provide documentation showing these new electrical codes and which agency requires this specialized testing? Hayes became aggressive when Kevin questioned the testing requirements, claiming that many electrical contractors and building inspectors weren't aware of the new regulations and that property owners were personally responsible for compliance. Mr. Adams, many electrical contractors and building inspectors don't understand the new advanced testing requirements, but property owners are legally responsible for complete compliance whether their professionals know about it or not. Hayes insisted with apparent regulatory complexity and owner responsibility knowledge. Hayes also threatened that Kevin's electrical system would be disconnected by safety officials if he didn't complete the specialized testing immediately through their authorized testing service. Kevin felt frustrated by Hayes's threats and decided to verify the testing requirements through his electrical contractor, building department, and state electrical regulatory agencies. Kevin contacted his electrical contractor and building inspector to verify whether any additional testing was required for his electrical upgrade, and learned that all necessary inspections were being completed according to current electrical codes. Kevin also contacted state electrical regulatory agencies to verify whether new testing requirements had been implemented for electrical upgrades, and learned that no such regulations existed beyond standard building department procedures. Kevin verified that code compliance testing was not listed as an authorized testing company with any electrical regulatory agencies or building departments. Kevin realized that code compliance testing was fraudulently claiming testing requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit his electrical upgrade to collect unnecessary testing fees. Kevin contacted code compliance testing to inform Hayes that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent. But Hayes continued to insist that the testing was mandatory and threatened electrical disconnection. Kevin reported the electrical testing fraud to his building department, state electrical regulatory agencies, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate electrical testing requirements are established through official building codes, and that property owners should verify all testing claims through licensed electrical professionals and regulatory agencies. Kevin learned that homeowners should work with licensed electrical contractors to understand actual code requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming specialized electrical testing beyond standard building department inspections. The experience taught Kevin to verify all electrical regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other postal workers about legitimate electrical requirements versus fraudulent testing schemes. Kevin now educates other postal workers about electrical fraud and emphasizes verifying all electrical testing requirements through licensed contractors and official building departments. Lisa, a 28-year-old social worker, was installing a new HVAC system when she received calls about heating inspection bills that would test her understanding of HVAC installation requirements and teach her valuable lessons about fake HVAC inspection scams. The caller claimed she owed money for specialized heating system testing. Lisa was installing a new heating and cooling system through a licensed HVAC contractor and had arranged for all required inspections through her local building department. The HVAC installation was being completed according to current mechanical codes and efficiency standards. Lisa had worked with licensed HVAC technicians and building inspectors to ensure that her new system met all installation requirements and had paid all required inspection fees directly to city building departments. The caller, who identified himself as HVAC Safety Testing Coordinator Paul Martinez from Mechanical Systems Compliance, claimed that Lisa owed $2,100 for specialized HVAC efficiency testing and environmental compliance inspections. Ms. Roberts, you have an outstanding HVAC inspection bill of $2,100 for comprehensive efficiency testing and environmental compliance analysis required for your heating system installation at 123 Maple Avenue, Martinez said with apparent HVAC code knowledge and efficiency testing expertise. Martinez claimed that recent changes in environmental regulations required additional specialized testing beyond standard building department inspections to ensure complete HVAC efficiency and emissions compliance. Ms. Roberts, new environmental regulations require comprehensive efficiency testing that goes beyond basic building department inspections, and HVAC installations cannot be approved without completing advanced compliance testing. Martinez continued with apparent environmental regulation knowledge and testing requirement expertise. Martinez explained that immediate payment was necessary to complete the required testing and that Lisa's HVAC system could be tagged for removal if the efficiency compliance requirements weren't satisfied within 48 hours. Lisa was confused because her HVAC contractor and building inspector had not mentioned any additional testing requirements, and her system installation was progressing normally through standard inspection procedures. My HVAC contractor and building inspector haven't mentioned any additional testing requirements, Lisa explained to Martinez. Can you provide documentation showing these new environmental regulations and which agency requires this specialized testing? Martinez became insistent when Lisa questioned the testing requirements, claiming that many HVAC contractors and building inspectors weren't aware of the new regulations and that property owners were personally responsible for environmental compliance. Ms. Roberts, many HVAC contractors and building inspectors don't understand the new environmental testing requirements, but property owners are legally responsible for complete compliance whether their professionals know about it or not, Martinez explained with apparent regulatory complexity and owner responsibility knowledge. Martinez also threatened that Lisa's HVAC system would be condemned by environmental officials if she didn't complete the specialized testing immediately through their authorized testing service. Lisa felt frustrated by Martinez's threats and decided to verify the testing requirements through her HVAC contractor, building department, and environmental regulatory agencies. Lisa contacted her HVAC contractor and building inspector to verify whether any additional testing was required for her system installation and learned that all necessary inspections were being completed according to current mechanical codes. Lisa also contacted environmental regulatory agencies to verify whether new testing requirements had been implemented for HVAC installations and learned that no such regulations existed beyond standard building department procedures. Lisa verified that Mechanical Systems Compliance was not listed as an authorized testing company with any environmental agencies or building departments. Lisa realized that Mechanical Systems Compliance was fraudulently claiming testing requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit her HVAC installation to collect unnecessary testing fees. Lisa contacted Mechanical Systems Compliance to inform Martinez that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent. But Martinez continued to insist that the testing was mandatory and threatened system condemnation. Lisa reported the HVAC testing fraud to her building department, environmental regulatory agencies, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate HVAC testing requirements are established through official building codes, and that property owners should verify all testing claims through licensed HVAC professionals and regulatory agencies. Lisa learned that homeowners should work with licensed HVAC contractors to understand actual code requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming specialized HVAC testing beyond standard building department inspections. The experience taught Lisa to verify all HVAC regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other social workers about legitimate HVAC requirements versus fraudulent testing schemes. Lisa now educates other social workers about HVAC fraud and emphasizes verifying all heating system testing requirements through licensed contractors and official building departments. Anthony, a 36-year-old firefighter, was installing a new water heater when he received threatening calls about plumbing inspection bills that would test his understanding of plumbing installation requirements and teach him valuable lessons about fake plumbing inspection scams. The caller claimed he owed money for specialized water system testing. Anthony was installing a new water heater through a licensed plumber and had arranged for all required inspections through his local building department. The plumbing work was being completed according to current plumbing codes and water safety standards. Anthony had worked with licensed plumbers and building inspectors to ensure that his new water heater met all installation requirements and had paid all required inspection fees directly to city building departments. The caller, who identified herself as water safety testing specialist Susan Miller from Plumbing Code Compliance, claimed that Anthony owed $1,700 for specialized water quality testing and pressure system inspections. Mr. Garcia, you have an outstanding plumbing inspection bill of $1,700 for comprehensive water quality testing and pressure system analysis required for your water heater installation at 456 Oak Street, Miller said with apparent plumbing code knowledge and water safety testing expertise. Miller claimed that recent changes in water safety regulations required additional specialized testing beyond standard building department inspections to ensure complete water system safety and code compliance. Mr. Garcia, new water safety regulations require comprehensive testing that goes beyond basic building department inspections, and plumbing installations cannot be approved without completing advanced compliance testing. Miller continued with apparent water regulation knowledge and testing requirement expertise. Miller explained that immediate payment was necessary to complete the required testing and that Anthony's water system could be disconnected if the safety compliance requirements weren't satisfied within 24 hours. Anthony was confused because his plumber and building inspector had not mentioned any additional testing requirements, and his water heater installation was progressing normally through standard inspection procedures. My plumber and building inspector haven't mentioned any additional testing requirements, Anthony explained to Miller. Can you provide documentation showing these new water safety regulations and which agency requires this specialized testing? Miller became aggressive when Anthony questioned the testing requirements, claiming that many plumbers and building inspectors weren't aware of the new regulations and that property owners were personally responsible for water safety compliance. Mr. Garcia, many plumbers and building inspectors don't understand the new water safety testing requirements, but property owners are legally responsible for complete compliance whether their professionals know about it or not. Miller insisted with apparent regulatory complexity and owner responsibility knowledge. Miller also threatened that Anthony's water service would be terminated by safety officials if he didn't complete the specialized testing immediately through their authorized testing service. Anthony felt frustrated by Miller's threats and decided to verify the testing requirements through his plumber, building department, and water safety regulatory agencies. Anthony contacted his plumber and building inspector to verify whether any additional testing was required for his water heater installation and learned that all necessary inspections were being completed according to current plumbing codes. Anthony also contacted water safety regulatory agencies to verify whether new testing requirements had been implemented for plumbing installations and learned that no such regulations existed beyond standard building department procedures. Anthony verified that Plumbing Code Compliance was not listed as an authorized testing company with any water safety agencies or building departments. Anthony realized that Plumbing Code Compliance was fraudulently claiming testing requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit his plumbing installation to collect unnecessary testing fees. Anthony contacted Plumbing Code Compliance to inform Miller that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent, but Miller continued to insist that the testing was mandatory and threatened water service termination. Anthony reported the plumbing testing fraud to his building department, water safety regulatory agencies, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate plumbing testing requirements are established through official building codes, and that property owners should verify all testing claims through licensed plumbing professionals and regulatory agencies. Anthony learned that homeowners should work with licensed plumbers to understand actual code requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming specialized plumbing testing beyond standard building department inspections. The experience taught Anthony to verify all plumbing regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other firefighters about legitimate plumbing requirements versus fraudulent testing schemes. Anthony now educates other firefighters about plumbing fraud and emphasizes verifying all water system testing requirements through licensed plumbers and official building departments. Michelle, a 30-year-old veterinarian, was adding a home office when she received calls about zoning inspection bills that would test her understanding of home business requirements and teach her valuable lessons about fake zoning inspection scams. The caller claimed she owed money for business compliance inspections. Michelle was converting a room in her home into a veterinary consultation office and had properly applied for home business permits through her local zoning department. Her home office conversion was being completed according to zoning regulations and business licensing requirements. Michelle had worked with zoning officials and business licensing departments to ensure that her home office met all regulatory requirements and had paid all required fees directly to city offices during the permit process. The caller, who identified himself as Zoning Compliance Billing Agent William Hayes from Business Inspection Services, claimed that Michelle owed $2,300 for mandatory business compliance inspections and zoning verification testing. Dr. Davis, you have an outstanding zoning inspection bill of $2,300 for business compliance testing and zoning verification analysis required for your home office at 678 Pine Avenue, Hayes said with apparent zoning regulation knowledge and business compliance expertise. Hayes claimed that recent changes in home business regulations required additional specialized inspections beyond standard zoning department approvals to ensure complete business compliance and neighborhood protection. Dr. Davis, new home business regulations require comprehensive compliance inspections that go beyond basic zoning approvals, and home offices cannot operate legally without completing advanced verification testing. Hayes continued with apparent business regulation knowledge and inspection requirement expertise. Hayes explained that immediate payment was necessary to complete the required inspections and that Michelle's home business license could be revoked if the compliance requirements weren't satisfied within 1 week. Michelle was confused because zoning officials had not mentioned any additional inspection requirements, and her home office permits had been approved through standard zoning procedures without complications. Zoning officials haven't mentioned any additional inspection requirements, and my permits have been approved, Michelle explained to Hayes. Can you provide documentation showing these new home business regulations and which department requires these inspections? Hayes became insistent when Michelle questioned the inspection requirements, claiming that many zoning officials don't communicate all business requirements and that home business owners were personally responsible for complete compliance. Dr. Davis, zoning departments focus on basic approvals and often don't explain all the separate business compliance requirements that home office owners are responsible for completing independently, Hayes explained with apparent regulatory complexity and business owner responsibility. Hayes also threatened that Michelle's veterinary license could be affected if her home business wasn't properly inspected and that professional licensing boards would be notified of noncompliance. Michelle felt concerned about potential licensing complications, but decided to verify the inspection requirements through zoning departments, business licensing agencies, and veterinary regulatory boards. Michelle contacted zoning departments and business licensing agencies to verify whether any additional inspections were required for her home office and learned that all necessary approvals had been completed according to current regulations. Michelle also contacted veterinary regulatory boards to verify whether home business compliance affected professional licensing and learned that no additional requirements existed beyond standard zoning approvals. Michelle verified that Business Inspection Services was not listed as an authorized service provider with any zoning departments or business regulatory agencies. Michelle realized that Business Inspection Services was fraudulently claiming inspection requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit her home business to collect unnecessary inspection fees. Michelle contacted Business Inspection Services to inform Hayes that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent. But Hayes continued to insist that the inspections were mandatory and threatened licensing complications. Michelle reported the zoning inspection fraud to zoning departments, business licensing agencies, and veterinary regulatory boards. The authorities explained that legitimate home business inspection requirements are established through official zoning channels and that business owners should verify all inspection claims through licensed zoning officials and regulatory agencies. Michelle learned that home business owners should work with zoning departments to understand actual business requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming specialized business compliance inspections beyond standard zoning approvals. The experience taught Michelle to verify all business regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other veterinarians about legitimate home business requirements versus fraudulent inspection schemes. Michelle now educates other veterinarians about business fraud and emphasizes verifying all home business inspection requirements through official zoning departments and business licensing agencies. Stephen, a 42-year-old plumber, was building a deck addition when he received phone calls about structural inspection bills that would test his understanding of deck construction requirements and teach him valuable lessons about fake structural inspection scams. The caller claimed he owed money for specialized foundation testing. Stephen was building a deck addition to his home through proper permit channels and had arranged for all required structural inspections through his local building department. The deck construction was being completed according to current building codes and safety standards. Stephen had worked with building inspectors to ensure that his deck addition met all structural requirements and had paid all required inspection fees directly to city building departments during the permit process. The caller, who identified herself as Structural Safety Testing Coordinator Karen Thompson from Foundation Compliance Services, claimed that Stephen owed $2,900 for specialized foundation testing and structural load analysis. Mr. Wilson, you have an outstanding structural inspection bill of $2,900 for comprehensive foundation testing and load-bearing analysis required for your deck addition at 789 Cedar Lane, Thompson said with apparent structural engineering knowledge and foundation testing expertise. Thompson claimed that recent changes in building codes required additional specialized testing beyond standard building department inspections to ensure complete structural safety and foundation stability. Mr. Wilson, new building codes require comprehensive structural testing that goes beyond basic building department inspections, and deck additions cannot be approved without completing advanced foundation analysis. Thompson continued with apparent building regulation knowledge and testing requirement expertise. Thompson explained that immediate payment was necessary to complete the required testing and that Stephen's deck could be condemned if the structural compliance requirements weren't satisfied within 48 hours. Stephen was confused because building inspectors had not mentioned any additional testing requirements, and his deck construction was progressing normally through standard inspection procedures according to current building codes. Building inspectors haven't mentioned any additional testing requirements, and my deck is being built to current codes, Stephen explained to Thompson. Can you provide documentation showing these new building codes and which agency requires this specialized testing? Thompson became aggressive when Stephen questioned the testing requirements, claiming that many building inspectors weren't aware of the new regulations and that property owners were personally responsible for structural compliance. Mr. Wilson, many building inspectors don't understand the new structural testing requirements, but property owners are legally responsible for complete compliance whether building officials know about it or not, Thompson insisted with apparent regulatory complexity and owner responsibility knowledge. Thompson also threatened that Stephen's deck would be demolished by safety officials if he didn't complete the specialized testing immediately through their authorized testing service. Stephen felt frustrated by Thompson's threats and decided to verify the testing requirements through building departments, structural engineering agencies, and state building regulatory authorities. Stephen contacted building departments and structural engineering agencies to verify whether any additional testing was required for his deck addition and learned that all necessary inspections were being completed according to current building codes. Stephen also contacted state building regulatory authorities to verify whether new testing requirements had been implemented for deck construction and learned that no such regulations existed beyond standard building department procedures. Stephen verified that Foundation Compliance Services was not listed as an authorized testing company with any structural engineering agencies or building departments. Stephen realized that Foundation Compliance Services was fraudulently claiming testing requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit his deck construction to collect unnecessary testing fees. Stephen contacted Foundation Compliance Services to inform Thompson that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent. But Thompson continued to insist that the testing was mandatory and threatened deck demolition. Stephen reported the structural testing fraud to building departments, structural engineering agencies, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate structural testing requirements are established through official building codes, and that property owners should verify all testing claims through licensed building professionals and regulatory agencies. Stephen learned that homeowners should work with building departments to understand actual structural requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming specialized structural testing beyond standard building department inspections. The experience taught Stephen to verify all building regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other plumbers about legitimate construction requirements versus fraudulent testing schemes. Stephen now educates other plumbers about construction fraud and emphasizes verifying all structural testing requirements through official building departments and licensed professionals. Rebecca, a 27-year-old pharmacy technician, was installing solar panels when she received calls about energy inspection bills that would test her understanding of renewable energy requirements and teach her valuable lessons about fake energy inspection scams. The caller claimed she owed money for specialized efficiency testing. Rebecca was installing solar panels through a licensed solar contractor and had arranged for all required electrical and building inspections through her local building department. The solar installation was being completed according to current electrical codes and energy efficiency standards. Rebecca had worked with licensed solar installers and building inspectors to ensure that her solar system met all installation requirements and had paid all required inspection fees directly to city building departments. The caller, who identified himself as Energy Efficiency Testing Agent Robert Chin from Solar Compliance Inspections, claimed that Rebecca owed $2,500 for specialized energy efficiency testing and grid connection compliance inspections. Ms. Johnson, you have an outstanding energy inspection bill of $2,500 for comprehensive efficiency testing and grid compliance analysis required for your solar installation at 345 Maple Drive, Chen said with apparent solar regulation knowledge and energy testing expertise. Chen claimed that recent changes in energy regulations required additional specialized testing beyond standard building department inspections to ensure complete solar efficiency and grid safety compliance. Ms. Johnson, new energy regulations require comprehensive efficiency testing that goes beyond basic building department inspections, and solar installations cannot be approved without completing advanced compliance testing. Chen continued with apparent energy regulation knowledge and testing requirement expertise. Chen explained that immediate payment was necessary to complete the required testing and that Rebecca's solar system could be disconnected if the efficiency compliance requirements weren't satisfied within 72 hours. Rebecca was confused because her solar contractor and building inspector had not mentioned any additional testing requirements, and her solar installation was progressing normally through standard inspection procedures. My solar contractor and building inspector haven't mentioned any additional testing requirements, Rebecca explained to Chen. Can you provide documentation showing these new energy regulations and which agency requires this specialized testing? Chen became insistent when Rebecca questioned the testing requirements, claiming that many solar contractors and building inspectors weren't aware of the new regulations and that property owners were personally responsible for energy compliance. Ms. Johnson, many solar contractors and building inspectors don't understand the new energy testing requirements, but property owners are legally responsible for complete compliance whether their professionals know about it or not. Chen explained with apparent regulatory complexity and owner responsibility knowledge. Chen also threatened that Rebecca's solar system would be removed by energy officials if she didn't complete the specialized testing immediately through their authorized testing service. Rebecca felt frustrated by Chen's threats and decided to verify the testing requirements through her solar contractor, building department, and energy regulatory agencies. Rebecca contacted her solar contractor and building inspector to verify whether any additional testing was required for her solar installation and learned that all necessary inspections were being completed according to current electrical and energy codes. Rebecca also contacted energy regulatory agencies to verify whether new testing requirements had been implemented for solar installations and learned that no such regulations existed beyond standard building department procedures. Rebecca verified that Solar Compliance Inspections was not listed as an authorized testing company with any energy agencies or building departments. Rebecca realized that Solar Compliance Inspections was fraudulently claiming testing requirements that didn't exist and attempting to exploit her solar installation to collect unnecessary testing fees. Rebecca contacted Solar Compliance Inspections to inform Chun that the fraudulent requirements had been verified as non-existent. But Chun continued to insist that the testing was mandatory and threatened system disconnection. Rebecca reported the energy testing fraud to her building department, energy regulatory agencies, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The authorities explained that legitimate energy testing requirements are established through official building codes, and that property owners should verify all testing claims through licensed energy professionals and regulatory agencies. Rebecca learned that homeowners should work with licensed solar contractors to understand actual energy requirements and should be suspicious of companies claiming specialized energy testing beyond standard building department inspections. The experience taught Rebecca to verify all energy regulatory claims through official channels and to help educate other pharmacy technicians about legitimate solar requirements versus fraudulent testing schemes. Rebecca now educates other pharmacy technicians about energy fraud and emphasizes verifying all solar testing requirements through licensed contractors and official building departments.